Well, we found something really fun to model.
What was that?
It's a mill. We've been looking for any excuse to drive over Traverse Mountain.
Yes.
Just because, we're isolated, quarantine, social separation, blah, 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 blah.
Can't go anywhere.
But at least here in Utah, they're actually saying, no, get out and drive around. Keep yourself sane. Just don't go anywhere where there's people.
Right, which is hard to do. But some places in Utah you can find places.
You can do it, yeah. And that's exactly what we're doing today. We're going to go check out a mill, the Star Mill. And
that's down in American Fork.
That's down in American
Oh,
Fork.
okay.
And it's, Al modeled it. Steve has picked up on that, and he's modeling it. And we're going to go check out the prototype so you can see what this amazing mill looks like. It's really neat, so check it out. Well, fortunately, it's no problem to find it once we got over there.
No, look at this.
It's a pretty well-known landmark, and it's been turned into a software company.
Oh, imagine that. Out of a mill?
Out of a mill. It stood abandoned for quite a few years, and it was used in different ways, but now it's a big software company, and because of the quarantine and everything, it was closed, so we could freely wander around the outside of it without running into anybody.
Right. It looks like this has been rebuilt. There's different brick and pattern, and it doesn't follow a particular pattern.
Yeah, look at that. There's several different colors of brick, and they're all kind of toggled together, and a little more than halfway up, it changes to a whole different brick entirely.
Well, I did some research online, and it looks to me like the place had been on fire, and when they made repairs, they actually added a third floor.
Well, that's pretty typical of these old buildings. And it's fun to try to find old original photographs so you can see what they looked like before they were remodeled. And there it is.
Yes, there it is, the two-story version.
The two-story version. No grain elevators or anything, but that's what it looked like when it was built in 1888.
Wow, I love the signage on it.
Isn't that neat? And this is what it looked like the first time I saw it.
Oh my.
Al and I went down there and it was being used as an antique store. And it was a great antique store, but Al really had a notion that he wanted to model it, so we wandered all over the place, and he took some pictures, and I took some pictures, and these are the pictures we took back then in, I believe, the 1990s. They filled the last bag of flour here in 1979.
Wow, imagine that.
That's almost 100 years.
Pretty close.
1888 to 1979. Anyway, at that point, Daniel Cooper bought it to use it as an antique store.
Nice.
Anyway, Al did go ahead and build his model.
Well, look at that.
It was just a building flat, and it was on the MRS railroad that we built. And you can see it's only about an inch deep, inch and a half deep, and it sat flat against the wall. But after that railroad went away, Steve got it, and he's decided to put it on his layout, and he took that building front and he's turned it into a complete building.
Oh, look at that.
So using Al's photographs, he's modeled the rest of the building, and now he's putting it on his railroad. Isn't that cool?
That is just awesome.
He's picked a grand building for modeling, I'll tell you that.
Oh, no kidding.
But he had to build the whole grain elevators here, and this is where the trucks would have been backed in to offload the grain into the elevators and silos. And he's adding that into this whole little scene that he's creating over here on the new peninsula on his railroad.
It's just incredible how fast he can go on all of this. I mean, every time we look up here, it's different.
Yeah, these pictures are about a month old, and this whole scene's finished now.
Right.
But he works up here every single day while we're all under quarantine. There's not much else to do, so he's up here 12, 14 hours a day. This is a street scene also left over from the MRS railroad that Al built. Oh, and then this is fun. Steve has added this new building to the scene, the Star Mills Farm Store.
I love this sort of thing.
That just really fleshes the whole thing out and makes it complete. I love the boardwalk, sidewalk, and everything. The railroad itself is ON30.
Oh.
And the outer part of the railroad is ON3, but the whole new peninsula is all ON30. If you've been following the channel, you know that Steve completely tore his railroad apart in anticipation of moving, and then changed his mind and started rebuilding it because he decided he was going to stay in the house that he's in. So this is all the new section that he's just recently started building.
Wow, this turned out really nice.
Yeah, he's got all the little details on it now, and the whole thing is basically finished at this point. But just in the last week, he's gone through and added all of these little extra details and so on, and the little add-on buildings on the back, again, from the photographs. But isn't it neat the way this whole thing has turned out?
It looks real.
He's modeled a lot of the original techniques that were used on the actual building, the different kinds of brick that are present, and the way the brick is bolted through the floor beams to keep the building strong and a little bit earthquake-proof. But one of the most unusual features on that building is this wood section.
That mystifies me.
I just don't understand why they built it the way they did, but they've stacked up 2x6s flat-wise and build it sort of like you'd build a log cabin. And so Steve and Al have gone through and duplicated that, and that's how it looks on the model. But when we were down there looking at the prototype, we checked out exactly how they did that, and you can see it's just 2x6s laid flat and then stacked up sort of the same way you'd build a log cabin.
Right.
I have no idea why they would build it that way.
I've seen it done before, but I don't know why.
Yeah, it's just, it seems like a really expensive way to build something, but there it is. That's how it was built. Of course, the software company's gone through and upgraded everything, seismic upgrades and everything. But it's really neat that they've been able to preserve the original part of the building while at the same time altering it to suit their needs. I love what they've done here with the elevators, putting windows in there, and it's actually people's offices.
That is neat.
Yeah, and here's the foyer, and you can see one of the elevators right there in the foyer of the building. Of course, again, it was all closed down when we were there. We were just looking through windows. But this blew my mind. They kept all of the milling machinery inside.
And I say kudos to them for doing that. Wonderful.
Wonderful. That is just so neat that given the $3 million that they've spent turning this into their offices, that they were willing to give up this huge footprint and just restore it instead of using it as office spaces. Someday I'd like to see that without looking through the windows. But they've sure done a great job of repurposing this into their corporate offices and their software development. Now, this is kind of interesting. The stream, the outflow stream that used to take the water out of the mill that runs under the building is still there.
That is wonderful, too.
And the water still runs under there, and on the other side of the road, it's a little hiking trail on what used to be the access road to the mill. And they've kept all of that authentic too, and it's just this beautiful, beautiful little walking area across the street from the mill. Isn't that a neat mill?
I love it. It's improved.
Yeah, well, and the
From
software
what it was.
company came along and saved it
Oh, no kidding.
because there was a lot of question whether it was savable, but they spent over
Right.
$3 million
Oh, yeah.
and turned it into their offices. And it's
Right.
neat that they left the milling equipment in there.
Exactly.
So it's a really neat building and well worth modeling, and it's really neat what Steve has done
Yeah.
with Al's model.
Yeah.
So it's all cool. Anyway, if you haven't been over to the channel, pop over to the channel, and if you're not a subscriber, the blue button coming up here will make you a subscriber if you click on it. Are we ready for it? Zoink! Blue button right there. Well, we're not sure how you found this movie on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring. And we will see you here on Tuesday with some Tuesday foolishness. We'll see you then.
See ya, bye.
Bye-bye.